Well, let's go ahead and get started. I want to welcome to everyone to attend our Dining with Diabetes program. We're so glad you guys were able to Zoom and meet with us today. I'm Sonia Mitchell. I'm the Health and Human Sciences educator from Washington County. I'm here with my colleagues. You'll meet one of them now, and later you'll meet Annette Lawyer, who will be doing our food demo. So here with me is Gail Peitzmeyer. And she'll be doing part of the presentation, and you'll meet her shortly. I already have a technical error. One moment.
It did before. There we go.
Did it go?
Acknowledgements. There you go. Oops, now it's slow.
Okay.
It does. It advances. It's just slow.
Sometimes even our technology is a little slow, so it looks like we're good to go. All right, so first we're going to make some acknowledgements here. You can see this is brought to you by Purdue Extension Health and Human Sciences, as well as the Purdue Department of Nutrition. And we also want to show some appreciation for West Virginia University for allowing us to adapt this program for our use. So this program comes in 4 sessions. The first session is going to be what is diabetes, and in our cooking school we will show you snacks and appetizers. We have a recipe that we're going to demonstrate for you later on at the end of our program. I hope you will be able to attend all 4 sessions. We do recommend that you attend all 4 sessions. Session 2 will cover carbohydrates and sweeteners. That's next week. The week after that will be fats and sodium. And then the following Tuesday from that, we'll be putting it all together. And each session will include a cooking demonstration with the recipes that you currently have in your program materials. So if it looks interesting, you think you'd like to try it, you already have it in your program materials. Today, we have several program goals we want to go over with you before we get started, so you know why you're attending our program. We want to increase your knowledge about eating healthy foods. We want you to learn healthier cooking techniques, and we want you to get a glimpse at some of the recipes. If we were in person, we'd give you a taste test, but unfortunately won't be able to do that today, but you will get to see the cooking demo. And you will learn basic information about diabetes, nutrition, and physical activity. And hopefully you will also be able to share and learn from one another. So you are also invited to participate in the program. It's not that you're just attending and we're lecturing. If you have comments you would like to share or questions, feel free to unmute yourself and we will let you speak and we'll hopefully address your questions. And I also want to make sure that people that are attending today understand that our program is not intended to provide individual prescriptions for diabetic meal planning, or nor is it intended to replace diabetes education furnished by your healthcare professional. This is a general program to give you an overview and hopefully let you learn a lot more about type 2 diabetes. All right, so today's agenda, we are going to cover just what is diabetes, how it affects your health. Diabetes in your healthcare team involves typically more than one person, and give you a kind of an introduction to healthy eating and some physical activity that you could do to help manage your diabetes. We will look at setting SMART steps, which is a way for you to set your own health goals regarding your type 2 diabetes and develop the steps to help you attain those goals. And then lastly, at the end, we will have a food demonstration that will show you an appetizer. And I will promise you, I got to be the taste tester, so I know that it's an excellent recipe. And I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Gail, now. What about the survey? Oh. She also wanted me to remind you before she started, I hope you completed the pre-program survey. Does everybody have that? Have you had a chance to look at it or go ahead and complete it? Awesome. I see you showing it to me. Great. Thank you, Nancy. Yes, so everybody, if you want, we'll give you just a few minutes. If you haven't completed the pre-program survey, to do so now. This is the opportunity to complete that. And then after we give a few minutes for those who haven't already completed it, Gail will start the next part of our lecture, and she will begin by talking about what is diabetes. Are there any questions at this time?
I only see a post-program survey.
She only sees Program survey. You don't have a pre-program survey in your materials that were mailed to you?
I don't see one.
Christy, this is Janet. The Floyd County office sent those out, and I did give the pre-survey to the office manager. If anybody did not receive the pre-program survey, say so in the chat box or let us know, and we will get that out to you right away. And we'll include a postage paid envelope. I'm sorry about that.
Thank you for bringing it up, Christy, because there may be others who didn't get it. And like Janet said, thank you, Janet, for stepping in and verifying that. If you did not get the pre-program survey, if you can type that in the chat box, Janet will make note of it and get it to you.
Is the survey the same? Do you want me to just write both pre and post on the same? No? Okay.
Yeah. So that, yes. So we'll just let her mail you one.
Thank you, Janet.
Thank you.
See anything in the. Okay.
And hopefully it's just that one.
Janet, are you able to see in the chat the names that you? Okay. Very good. Okay. So Janet's office at Floyd County will help take care of those pre-surveys, and you hadn't gone through the little bug in here. You know, that's what happened. What's happening with the warmer weather. You haven't gone through today's agenda yet, correct?
Yes. This is
That's what I thought. Okay, very good. Okay. We're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Gail Peitzmeyer, and I am one of the Health and Human Sciences educators with Extension, Purdue Extension. I serve Crawford County, and I am also a registered dietitian. And I'm going to try to minimize. There we go. Okay, so you can see the screen. And we're going to start with just talking, first of all, about diabetes in the United States. And one thing that we want to share is that if you or a family member, or perhaps you're helping to care for someone with diabetes, just to let you know that, you are not alone. In fact, you can just guess, how many millions of people dealing with this disease. Right here in Newsweek, I don't know what year this cover was. It says it strikes 16 million Americans, and are you at risk? Well, I can update some of those statistics for you and share with you that about 1.5 million new cases are diagnosed every year. And so in 2020, there were 34.2 million Americans, 1 out of 10 with diabetes. And we'll go into definition, of what is diabetes and what defines diabetes. And with pre-diabetes, there are actually 88 million Americans with pre-diabetes. That's 1 in 3 Americans. So that definitely means that you are not alone. Okay, so 1 in 10 diagnosed with diabetes, 1 in 3 with pre-diabetes. It probably seems even initially overwhelming to, how do I manage this? What's my life going to be like with diabetes? And, all those feelings are normal. So just to recognize that, while we're on this journey together, these next 4 weeks, learning how to manage diabetes, everybody has a unique situation. And so I'll be happy to share with anyone even my email address later, and perhaps the chat box, or if you want to email me at some point to ask some more personal questions, because I know diabetes is not a disease where one fits all. So let's start with, what is even diabetes? Well, we know that when we eat food, it is turned into sugar, otherwise known as glucose, by your body. So you consume food, it's turned into glucose by your body, and then that glucose or sugar is put into your bloodstream to be taken to all throughout your body. It's kind of like filling up the gas tank. It's giving you energy. Every body part uses this sugar or glucose to help it function. Then you have the other part, which is insulin. And insulin is made by a very important organ in your body called the pancreas. And insulin acts as a key to open the door to that cell, so the sugar, blood glucose, can get into the cell and do its work and allow your body to function as it should, normal. So here again, as you see, insulin acting as a key.
Yeah. I gotta stay in here so I can hear this.
Oh, hello. Okay, so now with diabetes, a lot of times what might be happening is it's at the level of the cell, okay? And it's like the key's not working. You know, we've all had that happen sometimes on occasion where, darn it, you know, I'm trying to unlock this door and I can't get this key to work. Well, that's kind of like how diabetes is, especially type 2 diabetes with the body. That sugar can't get in to the cell, so it remains in the bloodstream and it accumulates, and your blood sugar gets higher and higher and higher because it has absolutely no place to go. Now, you know, this blood glucose, sugar, it's not a bad thing. Remember, we have to have it. We have to have it in order to use it as an energy source. It is actually the preferred fuel source for our brain, our nerves, our muscular system. So, I mean, it's a good thing. It's when it accumulates and it starts to rise in our bloodstream that causes problems. Now, you're going, gee, I wish my fat stores would be a great energy source. And unfortunately, fat is, yes, an energy source, but it's a slow energy source. So good news and bad news there. It is used as an energy source, but very, very slowly. So when you hear terms, you know, like you from the doctor, like, oh, you've got a touch of sugar, or you have pre-diabetes, or your sugar's getting a little high, it's like, what the heck does that mean? Well, it means like if it's getting a little high or a touch of sugar, you know, say, hey, so what is my number? Okay, learn to ask that question first of all. What do you mean? Give me the number so you understand where are they talking about. Are they talking about 150 blood glucose level, or is it 105? Because there's a big, huge difference there. And you need to be aware of that. But sometimes, and I think doctors these days are becoming a little bit more, you know, tougher on this pre-diabetes, even, you know, not letting it go to full-blown diabetes. And they're starting to say, hey, you know what, that 105, now you're pre-diabetic. Let's do something about it before it becomes 126 or 130. So you are on the path to becoming fully with diabetes. So when they're saying to touch of sugar, your sugar's a little bit high, in a way that's kind of like the doctor telling you you're just a little bit pregnant. Okay, so you either are or you are not. So different feelings about diabetes. All right, so you've just been told, okay, you've got diabetes. And you're like, yeah, I got a little bit of sugar in my blood. All right, maybe it's like no big deal. You know, the doctor just says it's a touch high. It's not that bad. It's only 105 or it's only 120. No big deal. Or you can start to be concerned or scared or overwhelmed, or perhaps the opposite. It might empower you to really make some changes. Obviously, you've signed up for this program for the next 4 weeks to learn about how to live, how to manage your diabetes. And it's okay to be angry at first. And yes, at times you can feel like you're doomed, but I can tell you, because I'm a registered dietitian as well, and you can definitely manage diabetes. All right, so 2 different types of diabetes. Type 1 is where the body does not make the insulin at all. So you have cells within the pancreas that are not functioning. A lot of times we see type 1 diabetes with our children, our younger population, although you can be an adult, yes, and have type 1 diabetes. Body weight can be normal, it can be underweight. Diet and exercise do help control it. You must take insulin.
I'm not going anyplace. I'm taking a class right here on the computer.
So, and that's one of the differences, okay? So you have a pancreas, but it's not functioning properly and producing the insulin. The cells have been damaged. Type 2, it's like the key trying to open up the door. The body does not use the insulin correctly. Body weight is usually overweight or obese. Diet and exercise can help control it. And you may need pills or insulin, okay? May need, all right? Right now, about 95% of those with diabetes are actually type 2 diabetics. So why should I be concerned? Why should I maybe want to be empowered and start to take control of my life, of my lifestyle? Well, it's because there are some major complications that can happen. Nerve damage, blindness. So remember I was talking about that blood sugar level going higher and higher because the insulin is not able to be the key and unlock the cell door and get that blood glucose into the cell so it works and gives you energy. Instead, it just accumulates in your bloodstream. Well, nerve damage there, okay? Our body is a very vascular system. We have capillaries, microcapillaries. We are very vascular all throughout from head to toe. So let's say you go to the eye doctor. You're going, you know, I think I'm just kind of at that age where things are getting a little blurry. And so they check your eyes and the health of your eye and the optic nerve. And then they're wondering about perhaps your blood sugar. So what if your blood sugar is starting to rise? And what's really going on is not that you're getting older, so your eyesight's kind of failing a little bit, but that blood glucose is getting stuck on the nerves and it's like crystallizing there, okay? So your nerves, like in your eyes and throughout your body, are trying to soak up. It's like a sponge. They're trying to help your body out. And it's going, oh my goodness, the blood sugar is rising in the bloodstream and I'm going to be a sponge and I'm going to suck up that sugar. And instead it ends up crystallizing on your nerves throughout your vascular system, contributes to heart disease, loss of a limb, stroke, kidney failure. Yes, lots of money, of course, but just for you to be aware of the fact that diabetes can be very damaging to the body. I see somebody is wanting in. I'm going to admit somebody. Excuse me for just a minute. Okay, I believe they're in. Okay, so you know, it's also the 7th leading cause of death. And also because our body is such a vascular system, we frequently see heart disease or stroke, cardiovascular disease, and diabetes in patients, or, you know, in the population. The two go together. So if you're also kind of battling cardiovascular disease, just know that the two kind of go hand in hand. So there's good news. Most complications are preventable. All right, that's good news, right? You know, as we had talked about in the previous slide, you know, diabetes is a very, very expensive disease. I think it was in 2017, the total cost of diabetes in the United States was $327 billion. So, you know, a lot of money there being spent. So just to know that doing things like coming to this program, maybe starting to make some little changes in how you eat, in becoming a little bit more physically active, trying to maybe lose a little bit of weight, just minor little changes can help decrease the risk of some of those complications that we talked about. Okay, so you should also have a healthcare team. You do want to monitor your blood sugar, work with your doctor on that. It's hard for me, even though I'm a registered dietitian, to tell you how often you should monitor your blood glucose levels. That really should be a discussion that you have with your doctor. The checking the A1C, that A1C is your hemoglobin A1C. We're also going to talk about that a little bit more. And then there are some other things you want to monitor, such as your blood pressure. You want to check your microalbumin levels. Going to talk about that briefly, and your glomerular filtration rate. And you're going, what the heck is that? Well, we're going to talk about that here in a minute. Also knowing your cholesterol. And also, do you see an eye doctor, a foot doctor? Do you go to the dentist? Do you get the recommended vaccinations? And also, of course, following some diet and physical activity recommendations that we'll be providing. Okay, so monitoring your blood glucose levels. So remember, that's the same as blood sugar. So what should it be? Fasting should be under 100, okay? So anytime you go and you're getting fasting blood work done, it should be less than 100. Pre-diabetes would be where the reading is 100 to 125. And then full-blown diabetes would be 126 and above. Okay, and these are recommendations or recommended numbers per the American Diabetes Association. So sometimes, you know, you may wake up in the morning and the doctor will say to you, hey, check your blood sugar first thing in the morning. Okay, so ideally, you would like it to be 100 or lower because you haven't had anything to eat perhaps for several hours, maybe 8 hours or more. Now, 2 hours after the start of a meal, not after you finish it, but after the start of a meal, you might want to see that number go under 140. But this is where really have to stress that these are general recommendations because it's going to depend on what you've just consumed. Okay, so if you've gone to a restaurant, let's say you went to Olive Garden and you had a big plate of pasta. Okay, those numbers 2 hours after the start of your meal being at 140 or under is going to be pretty tough to do. So depends on how much you eat and the actual food that you eat. Okay, the A1C, the hemoglobin A1C, very, very important number. So what you typically do is you have this tested every 3 to 6 months. I think most doctors who see patients with diabetes like to have this done every 3 months. And you would like your number to be less than 7. Now,
Gail,
yes.
I'm sorry, while you're talking about numbers, we do have a question in the chat box wanting to know if the range of numbers is the same for adults and teens.
Yes, yes, but that's a good question because then you get into physical activity as well. So yes, the overall general numbers are the recommended numbers for youth and adults. Does that help answer that question?
That question was from Jan. Jan, did that answer your question?
Sorry, I was typing. Yes, it did, but can I ask, is there a number that is too low?
Yes, and I'm going to talk about that.
Okay,
Yes, yes,
Okay.
and that gets involved with physical activity. So yes, you're a couple steps ahead, but Jan, that's a good question. Okay, so the A1C. So I've been a dietitian for a long time, and I know how we all are, right? Not just people with diabetes or heart disease, but all of us. We know we're going to see the doctor next week, and so it's like, oh, I better be really good this week, right? I better maybe watch what I'm eating, see if I can lose a pound or two, and because doctor's not going to be real happy with me. Well, a lot of times folks with diabetes used to do that. Just, try to be good the week before they go to see the doctor. But this A1C really shows remember how I said this glucose sticks to your nerves? Well, it also sticks to your red blood cells. And basically, the A1C test measures the amount of sugar that is stuck to your red blood cells. And so it shows like a 3-month picture, a 3-month view of your blood glucose readings. So now it's like, darn it, I have to be good for 3 months. I can't just be good the week before. So that's why most doctors check this on a regular basis, like every 3 months. So I think some doctors that you may or may not see are specialists with endocrinology. And endocrinology is the science, or there is the study of your hormones in your body. And remember, insulin is a hormone. So some of you may also see a specialist called an endocrinologist, and they like to see even tighter control of an A1C. If you see an endocrinologist, they're going to want that number to be 6.5% or less. Remember, it reflects the amount of sugar stuck to your red blood cells. And if your red blood cells are sugar coated, they're not able to function properly. And one of the things they're not able to do is to get oxygen throughout your body. Remember our vascular system and capillaries and microcapillaries, and that's where sometimes we can see our red blood cells not delivering oxygen, like all the way down to our toes. And you may know of some family members or friends who have lost toes or below the knee, or perhaps an ankle amputation. And again, that can be due to the lack of oxygen and nerve deterioration going on in their lower extremities. So it is really important to try to get this number at the appropriate level, okay? All right, now blood pressure. Again, going back to the fact that we are a vascular system. So the American Diabetes Association's goal is less than 140/90. But your doctor may be working with you. Maybe you're seeing a cardiologist as well, a heart doctor as well, and they may want even tighter controls, such as 130/80 as being your blood pressure. So typically you hear, yeah, your blood pressure should be 120/80 or under. but there are a few other recommendations for those with diabetes and heart disease and those with diabetes. Again, because of the fact that being a vascular system, our blood pressures can get elevated with things like diabetes and heart disease, or also known as coronary artery disease. Okay, so another area that's vascular are our kidneys. And these two tests may be done every 6 months or so with your doctor on a regular blood or lab test. The microalbumin, what they're looking for is seeing if you have any protein in your urine. Okay, if you have protein in your urine, that's a sign that things aren't going right at the level of the kidney. Okay, so they're looking at kidney function here. Protein in the urine is microalbumin. Then even more sensitive test is the glomerular filtration rate. And you've got these tiny filters within your kidneys, and that's exactly what this test is looking at, what this glomerular filtration rate is looking at, to see if the filters are working properly. So in a way, it's like diabetes and elevated blood pressure. It kind of beats up your arteries, okay? Kind of beats up that vascular system and can weaken it. So that's why they're doing tests such as this. All right, then we've got the cholesterol. Okay, now a lot of us know cholesterol, and we hear about cholesterol and we immediately think, oh, cholesterol bad. Well, I mean, our bodies naturally produce cholesterol. We have a liver in our body that's about, it's a rather large organ. It weighs about 2.2 pounds. And one of the things that the liver does is it helps to produce cholesterol. And actually there's a purpose of cholesterol. It is even though it's a fatty, waxy substance, it helps to build cells, cell membranes, hormones, vitamin D. So it's not all bad, okay? But when we get too much of it, just like when we get too much of the blood glucose, then it can cause some complications. So we do want you to know what your total cholesterol is. And we're going to be talking about that more in another lesson. But also there's something known as the LDL. And the LDL is a part of your total cholesterol, and it has a purpose too, okay? Just like total cholesterol does. It helps cholesterol get to the blood to the nerves and tissues, and it only becomes bad when we have too much of it in our bloodstream, okay? So that is a good thing to keep, probably under 100. We know that if you don't have any health issues at all, we like to see that number below 130. But if you have diabetes, they like to see that number typically 100 or less. Then there's the HDL, the high density lipoprotein. Okay, so this is also known as the good cholesterol. So I always describe the HDL, again, part of the total cholesterol, as acting like garbage men. The HDL will go throughout your bloodstream and well, I remember the game Pac-Man. I don't know how many of you all remember Pac-Man, but it kind of, goes chomping through and collecting the gunk in your bloodstream and taking it on out through your body. So HDL, happy. If you want to think of it as that way, HDL as being happy, and maybe LDL as being the lousy. The higher, the better for the HDL. And these are recommendations for men. You want that number to be 40 or greater. For women, 50 or greater. I do know that not smoking and being physically active can help increase those numbers with the HDL. Again, that would be a good thing. So remember, just like with blood glucose, it's not all that bad to have, cholesterol in your body. It's going to be naturally there anyway. Okay, eye and foot exams. Well, I talked a little bit about how blood glucose can cause your eyesight to become blurry because the sugar is coating the nerves behind your eyes. Same thing happens throughout your body. We talked a little bit about that with your kidneys and then going all the way down to your toes. All right, so that blood glucose has got to go somewhere. If it can't go into the cells, it's going to end up spilling into your urine and attaching itself to your nerves and also to your red blood cells. So it is really important, and I hope all of you are already doing this, going for regular eye and foot exams. So an eye doctor might be an ophthalmologist or an optometrist. An ophthalmologist is actually a medical doctor who's an eye doctor, and the podiatrist is the foot doctor. We do know, and remember, we talked about the loss of toes, the loss of limbs due to nerve damage. Sometimes, we don't look at our feet all that often, or, we walk barefoot, or maybe we have a sore on the bottom of our foot, but we don't, check it out. Well, that's a really good place once you have that sore for the sore to become worse and to have it become infected. And then, you can't get the oxygen down to heal that wound. And so then you've got an escalating problem. Dental care, equally as important. Ideally, seeing your dentist at least twice a year. We know that those who have diabetes are twice as likely to have gum disease. And we know that if you have gum disease, which is also known as periodontal disease, you have 2 to 3 times the risk for a cardiovascular event. Okay, so again, think about it. That vascular system, which I've mentioned many, many times during this presentation, you just can't get that blood adequately throughout the body. And so it causes problems getting oxygen to various areas of the body, and you get a buildup of bacteria, perhaps an infection, leading to things like gum disease. So again, that sounds like doom and gloom, but remember we talked about prevention. So seeing your eye doctor, seeing the podiatrist, maybe an endocrinologist, okay, ophthalmologist, seeing all of these folks on a regular basis is really going to help you out. Okay, the vaccinations. Well, we've been hearing a lot about vaccinations, that's for sure. So for years now, we've all been taking the flu shot. And then also you may at some point have had a hepatitis B. There's the new shingles shot, which is a shot that you get usually 3 to 6 months. You get your first shot, and then 3 to 6 months later, you get your second shot. Then there's the pneumonia vaccine. And of course, what are we all talking about these days? The COVID-19 vaccine. And I just had my second one last Thursday. I think my colleague has had hers as well. So just part of the process, part of that routine care that we try to, really help ourselves out a little bit. Of course, when in doubt, please do talk to your doctor. And hopefully all of you have a family physician, and you already have maybe even a specialist. So I have my partners coming back up to talk about snacks, and can we have snacks? You sure can.
All right, so now here we're going to look at snacks, yes or no. And during this course of this program, each week, we're going to talk about healthy eating principles that you can put into practice to help control your diabetes. And snacking is an important part of the American lifestyle. And for a person with diabetes, snacking used to be more highly controlled due to your fixed insulin schedule and limited oral medication choices. However, these days, a person with diabetes can design a more flexible meal plan with different insulin schedules and more oral medication choices. So snacking plays a particularly important role in the daily life of the diabetic because snacks can help to keep blood glucose levels as closest to normal as possible and can help prevent low blood glucose levels. They also help hold hunger at bay and provide a constant supply of energy. So snacks aren't necessarily bad, but we do need to be mindful of the types of snacks we're eating, that they are nutritious and they're lower in fat and salt and unhealthy things that we don't need as a diabetic, including the sugar content. So one of the biggest myths about snacking is that snacks are a bad thing. The truth is that it's not. Snacking itself isn't that bad for us, but it's the snack choices that give the snacking a bad name. So snacks must be carefully considered in the content of the diabetic's total eating plan. Snacks help to provide a constant supply of energy to our body and keep us from feeling hungry. And remember, it's all about what snacks you're choosing, and it can help to regulate your sugar. So you can use snacks to be a good thing in your diet. They just must be nutritious and they must be counted in the daily total calories of fats, carbohydrates, and proteins as well. I'm getting stuck again. There's the snacks a lot people would probably prefer to choose. Those are obviously not the healthier choices that we're looking for. So let's look at snack factors to consider. The perfect snack is one that packs nutrition power but doesn't add a lot of calories and fat to the eating plan. Snacks are a great way to include some healthy foods like fruits, vegetables, and low-fat dairy items and high-fiber grains. Some examples of some snacks that we would recommend would be perhaps apple with peanut butter, low-fat cheese with whole grain crackers, or veggie sticks with dips. You really do have a lot of options for snacks that can be tasty and nutritious. You just need to be mindful and make a decision to use those. I know a bag of chips is sometimes easier to grab, but it would not be the best choice if you're trying to manage your diabetes. So being more mindful of the things you reach for when you feel hungry and you need a snack is very important. The next thing that we've talked about that can be very important to your diabetes is developing physical activity. And there's a lot of different ways in which you can engage physically and be active through your life. So physical activity obviously makes you healthier, whether you're a diabetic or not. We all need physical activity. So increasing one's physical activity has many health benefits. For a person with type 2 diabetes, physical activity can assist in reducing one's blood glucose, your A1C, cholesterol, and blood pressure. All the things that Gail just talked about can be impacted by physical activity. Adding additional benefits include helping with weight control and making you feel better. They also help your medications work better and increase your strength. The current recommendations from the American Diabetes Association is that most adults with type 2 diabetes should engage in 150 minutes or more of moderate to vigorous intensity aerobic activity per week, spread over at least 3 days a week with no more than 2 consecutive days without activity. I would also say that although this is a general recommendation, as Gail said before, it's important to work with your healthcare provider to develop a physical activity plan that works best for you. Gail, did you want to say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, thanks. I'm going to cover a little bit more about that physical activity. Notice how we're calling it physical activity and not exercise, right? Just move. And I know that that can seem kind of like a daunting task. It's like, oh my goodness, now I got to start exercising too. I got to eat better. Oh my, it's overwhelming, right? But you have to start where you are in life right now. No one's telling you to go and run a marathon or a mini marathon. If your level of walking right now is at 0, you start with a couple minutes, but you gotta go at your pace Okay, so I do want to stress that. And but I've seen it work in people. And I'll tell you a story here in a little bit, but I want to go back to some numbers here. As someone with diabetes, you want to avoid hypoglycemia. Hypoglycemia means that drop in your blood glucose levels. Okay, I believe it was Jan who had that question about, can your blood sugar be too low? And the answer is yes. Think about this. Can your gas tank in your car be too low? Yes. Running on fumes? How do you do it? When your gas, tank is on that E, how far are you going to go? The same thing is with your blood glucose levels. So whether you're going golfing or going for a walk or going to the gym or whatever, or even maybe going gardening, because gardening, yard work can be quite physically active as well. You might want to check your blood glucose level. Now, I would not recommend that you start exercising if you check your blood glucose level and it is below 70, okay? Because remember, glucose is an energy source. It's going into your blood cells. So your muscles and your nerves and your brain and your lungs and your heart can work. So if it's 70 and you're taking that gas tank down and down and down, you certainly, it would be scary to be with a blood glucose reading of 40, 30, 20. That is, you are on empty, okay? So before you start exercising, you need to get that blood glucose level up closer to 100. So what you need to do is you need to put off that walk or that bike ride or whatever you were going to do, and you want to take about 15 grams of glucose every 15 minutes until you get that number up to closer to 100. Now, what that might look like is 4 ounces of 100% juice or 4 ounces of a non-diet soda, so a regular soda. Also, if you think about some of the hard candies, taking in 4 to 6 little hard candies, depending on the size and what they are, or even having sugar packets with you. Those little sugar packets that you see, in restaurants. Well, I don't know if they're on the tables anymore at restaurants, but I think you know what I'm talking about. Each of those sugar packets will have just under 4 grams of sugar. Okay, 4 grams of sucrose, sugar in each packet. Okay, so remember 15 grams, 4 ounces of juice or soda, or maybe about 4 sugar packets to get that number up. Okay, so you take in the 4 ounces of the soda, check your blood glucose level, see how it is. And if it's up high enough, then you can start to do your physical activity, okay? Years ago, my dad used to go golfing with one of his buddies who was diabetic, and all of his golfing buddies made sure that they always had some kind of candy on hand, like hard candy, or maybe even sugar packets, or like a can of regular soda. So that when John felt like his blood glucose was going down, and when you're on the golf course, you're out in the middle of nowhere sometimes, that they could help their friend out. So that's very important. Also, we were talking about that vigorous exercise. Well, no one's asking you to run or even walk at a brisk pace. You got to walk at your pace, okay? And again, yes, it would be great to be active for at least 30 minutes a day, but if you can't do 30 minutes straight, well, then maybe you work your way up to that. What about 3 times a day, 10 minutes each time? What a vigorous workout would be, or walk or run, would be where you're walking with your friend and you can't really carry on a conversation. A more moderate walk is where you can take a walk throughout your subdivision or in the park, and you can actually talk to your friend. Okay, so that would be moderate. Exercise that's vigorous is where you can, you're huffing and puffing. You got that heart rate up pretty good. Let's see here. So remember about balance. It really takes all these pieces, okay? The physical activity, moving your body, good food, nutritious food, yes, and even snacking, knowing your numbers, taking your medication, your vaccinations, and watching your numbers, such as like your blood pressure, your A1C, your blood glucose levels, and your cholesterol. And remember that you have a team, and your Purdue Extension educators are a part of your team. So remember that you have that. Before Sonia comes back up here to talk about SMART steps, I just wanted to share something with you. I was working with a lady in Crawford County, and she just popped into my office one day, and she was a little frustrated. She had been diagnosed with diabetes, and she was sad about that. She was going through some of that grieving process, just being diagnosed with diabetes. And, I shared information with her, spent maybe 45 minutes or so with her, and then she left. And then it was really about a year later, she came back into the office, all smiles. She had lost about 35 pounds, and her blood glucose levels were normal. Everything was fantastic. She said her doctor couldn't believe it, gave her a hug. And so I just want to share with you that it does happen. It can happen. I want to give you some hope here. So, just don't think, well, I got to lose 50 pounds and I have to lose it, in 2 months, because that's not going to happen. Okay. Take it off slowly, make those different lifestyle changes, and just enjoy the journey. Okay.
All right, and keeping up with what Gail just shared with you about taking the small steps, we're going to look at SMART steps. This is a formula for helping you develop goals to help you manage your diabetes. And what we want to do here is take those small steps, make those small changes. So now that we're going to decide what your SMART steps are going to be for the coming week. Based on what you've heard today in our lecture series, I want you to think about one thing that you can change to take better control of your diabetes. So here are some tips for setting your SMART steps. So the S is specific. So this would be where you would detail exactly what it is you want to do. It can be something very small. Once again, it could be something such as, I'll check my blood pressure before meals and 2 hours after meals to evaluate my blood sugar control. That's just one step, just one thing, your commitment to monitor your blood sugar levels around meals. If we're using that as a goal, then we want to next at how we're going to measure that. So your goal would be something that you could measure to see if you are accomplishing it or not. So it's got to be definitely something that is number related that you can document. So you'll write down these blood sugars in a log, one on a weekday and one on a weekend day. So first we're going to start monitoring our blood sugar levels. That's what your goal might be. And then we're going to write down what those levels are. And then attainable, as Gail said, don't set big lofty goals that require you to make major changes or do a lot all at one time. That can be discouraging. We're just looking for you to make a step towards a healthier you. So attainable. So, just don't set yourself up for failure. Make sure your goal is something that you can actually accomplish. So it might be something like bringing your supplies with you and setting an alarm for blood sugars after my meals. And that will help you remember that the goal you're trying to achieve. So choosing 2 days of the week, that wouldn't be too overwhelming, right? And relevant. So your goal should be related to what it is you're trying to accomplish. This goal will help you gauge your diabetes control and show areas where you can improve. So it's got to be meaningful and related to your overall goal. Timely, the goal that you set should be time bound, meaning that you should give yourself a specific time to accomplish it. I will log my blood sugars on one weekday and one weekend day within the next week. So you're going to make a commitment to monitor it. You're going to commit to writing it down, and you've got the times in which you're going to record it and make those monitoring steps. All right, so does everybody have a pretty good idea of how we're working here towards this, using the SMART formula to develop our steps towards managing our diabetes? So the SMART step, I'm going to say this all together now. I will log my blood sugars for each meal and 2 hours after meals on one weekday and one weekend day within the next 2 weeks to evaluate my blood sugar control and determine areas for improvement. So that's me putting that, all those little individual steps into one really long sentence, but I think you get the idea of what we're trying to do here. So just make sure that you give this some thought over all the things we've talked today, and you figure out something that's, what's the one small change you can make? And then use these SMART steps to help you really kind of make that change and monitor that change. And remember, when you document the changes you're making, you feel a sense of accomplishment. And when you look at those steps and you see it documented, you're like, yeah, I'm doing this. It's just one step in front of the other. So this is a good way to kind of encourage you to keep it up and keep going. So I think, yeah, we may be going to our recipe. Be sure to think about your SMART steps and take your time. I can't wait to hear from you all about what you decided for your goal. And make sure you write them down. And I think you have in your handout a My SMART Steps handout. And that will kind of help you guide you through these steps as well.
If we're all still together, I had a couple of questions in the box. One of them was about a glucose meter. Someone asked me, what's the best glucose meter to use? It's not so much the glucose meter as it is the strips. The glucose meter can actually be free. It's the strips that are expensive, and it's the strips that go with the glucose meter. So you're kind of like running around in a circle here. So the, that would be something to talk to your doctor about. You want to also check with your insurance provider, maybe even talk to the pharmacy to see which strips might be best for you to use. And I'll be real honest with you, the glucose meters, shoot, sometimes they'll even give those away. It's the strips that cost the money, okay? So, but the strips have to go with the meter. Yes, Chuck and Nancy, I see you shaking your head, yes. Yeah. It's the strips that are the problem.
I work for a doctor's office, so I get calls constantly about needing refills on their strips. And a lot of them now are even going to those new scanning where they only have to buy the 4 monthly.
Right. So, yeah, as you know, Nancy, sometimes it boils down to, what does your insurance provide? What kind of benefit do you have with that? So, otherwise I wish I could give you a better answer, but everybody's got probably a different insurance coverage too.
And the best thing they can do is call their insurance company and find out what they cover.
That's right. Yeah, very, very good. Good point. And I think I probably just did say something incorrectly. It's not your blood pressure that you check every 2 hours. Although in some cases, yes, with some people, we do check blood pressure quite frequently. It is your blood glucose levels that we check after you eat, 2 hours after the start of eating. And let's see, somebody had a question for Annette. Do you want to go ahead and have her come back? They wanted to know about the chips. They had a question for her.
Yes, those chips were, they're just regular tortilla chips that were tomato and basil. And then I went and cooked them.
And let's see.
Yeah, Gail's got a little bit of what was left of the chips that we had.
Yes.
A bowl there that shows the salsa as well.
Yeah.
I apologize for the problems with the video. We'll work on that and get the sound straightened out and then get that on YouTube later. And here's what's left of the salsa.
And here's what's left of the salsa.
which isn't much left.
Well, there's not much left because we had to taste test it. So
That's right. That's right.
questions. I did also put in the chat box a little bit ago my email address. So if something comes up later tonight or tomorrow or the next few days, you can email me your questions. Also, there's another registered dietitian who will be teaching a couple of these classes, and her name is Molly Marshall, and she will actually be with you next week. And then I'll come back on the 20th and she'll be with you on the 27th.
And next week, we'll be talking about desserts.
Ooh.
We'll be demonstrating some desserts for you.
Okay, right now I do not see any other questions in the chat box. Or if anybody wants to unmute and ask something, they certainly may as well.
Since we have a little time, can you hit the protein in your urine again a little bit more?
Yes, that test that will check that out is called the microalbumin test. Albumin is a protein, so the microalbumin is actually the smaller protein, and when your kidneys start to not filter well and due to damage done to the vascular system again, that that doesn't filter and you end up with protein spilling into your urine. So it is a really important test. Again, that is looking at your kidney function. Does that help, Jan?
Can you reverse that?
Well, I mean, yeah. Can you reverse? Yeah. It's all about how far have you gone with things. It's just like, okay, so let's just use an example of a UTI, urinary tract infection. Yeah, you can get on some medication and you can take care of that. Or should you choose to not go to the doctor, not get on an antibiotic, you can have that go on and hit your kidneys and have a kidney infection. So, it's kind of like, where are you in your regular medical care? That's why you need to have that lab work done on a regular basis so that you catch it before it turns into something more complicated. Because, it is true that folks with diabetes who maybe have had some complications that have become more serious, or they've had challenges managing their diabetes, we do know that they have loss of limb, loss of kidney function, can go on dialysis. So, but just because initially you have some protein in your urine doesn't mean, oh my, I'm going to be on dialysis. Okay. It means, what do I need to do to get that blood glucose under control and manage my diabetes? So
Okay.
that preventive side, I cannot stress that enough about being on the preventive side.
Okay.
And that's for your eyes, your kidneys, your feet, your heart, so pick a body part. Okay. So being on the front end of it. Well, yeah, Sonia just mentioned, stopping the progression, even if it doesn't totally reverse, stopping the progression. Yeah, that's important as well. Okay, right now, I don't see anything in the chat box. Anybody else have some questions? Again, you have my email address. Okay, well, I guess we'll join back again in a week. And you may want to take a look at what little thing, what tiny lifestyle behavior you might want to try and work out that SMART goal, and perhaps share that in class next week if you would like to. It could be trying a new recipe. It could be, hey, I did a 5-minute walk in the morning. I did a 5-minute walk at noon. I did 5 minutes that evening. You know, whatever it might be. Or it could be, yeah, I haven't been going to the dentist for a few years, but I made my dental appointment. You know, those are all those lifestyle changes that truly make a difference. So ladies, anything else you want to add?
Thanks for joining us, and please attend the next 3 sessions as well. There'll be a different group of educators presenting, but it's really important you attend all 4 sessions. Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you all.
Thank you.
Have a lovely night.